Today, on the worldview, it's going to be focused on Africa, the coups, and Ukraine getting help from a government contractor that helps U.S. with their weapon systems. All today on the worldview. Everybody, Chris Greco here with the Worldview. For the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking about different types of things that are happening in the world. But I think today what we're going to focus on is some interesting stuff that's going on in the African continent. And I think what's happening is something that was bound to happen. And that was the ability of the military in different African countries to finally say enough, we're going to take charge, this is what's going to happen, and then we're going to move on, hopefully. Interestingly enough, this type of situation with these coups in Africa have been happening for decades. And there's a very good data set out there by a ex-political science professor who's now a Google scholar. And so I'm going to share that data with you today. But basically, it's the coups are going to happen. Coup d'etat is not coup de ville. It's not a coup de ville. It has nothing to do with chicken coops. It has nothing to do with pigeon coops. It has nothing to do with Cooper. It has nothing to do with any of those things. It has to do with coup d'etat, which in French means blow to the state. And that's really what's happening, is that the state meaning the sovereign state, not just not just a state in the United States, but literally the state of the government, is being overthrown by what they call a junta. And the junta, or junta as they call it, is taking over, and then that government is at the whim of the military. Now, a lot of people sit there and say, well, Africa, very unstable. But I mean, Chile, this happened in Chile. September 9th, 1973, there was the president of Chile, Salvador Allende, was overthrown and killed. Actually, there was some, he said he jumped off the building, whatever, jumped off the building. Anyways, by Augusto Pinochet, who took charge of the country and promised democratic elections and whatever else, and then proceeded to run that country for a number of decades. And as a result of that, was really killed a lot of people, most of them innocent people, held others in prison. It was kind of horrible. So basically what's happened there is that the coup was there for a reason. Now, Salvador Allende happened to be leaning towards the left, Marxist, communist, whatever you want to call him. And there was some indication that the U.S. had did some help in that coup, which is not unheard of. I mean, countries do, bigger countries do help with overthrows. They don't admit it at the time. They don't say, oh, no, we never did that. That's what they say. But really, major powers have some, they kind of push that into that situation there. Right now, it's interesting. Gabon is now under coup. Bongo is gone. And I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, about how things were happening in Gabon. And evidently, they did take over the military. So now you have Niger and now you have Gabon. Interestingly enough, all the French colonies are now turning to coups to get rid of the French, get rid of their and French policies in that area are really failing miserably. Mainly because when they originally had their say in the French colonies, they really treated people badly, and that's part of their issue. and that's gonna work in their to their detriment in the future. So we have a lot of coups happening, but is there a lot of coups? I mean, we have to take a look at that, and we're going to take a look at that on a world view basis. So let's take a look at something very sad at this point, and it has to go back to Africa again. And this is a sad story. It was done by the BBC, which of course, I really like. And basically, it says what a doctor's death in a lift elevator to you and I may tell us about Africa's debt crisis. And basically, this is an individual who was in Lagos, Nigeria, or is in Nigeria, and she. It's sad that she was finishing her training, or just 2 weeks away. She was going to be a doctor. I mean, they're a doctor, but then they go into residency. I think it is internship and residency, that type of thing. Uh, she had repeatedly complained to management about the crumbling infrastructure, power cuts, all those types of things, and then she fell 9 floors and was killed. She died. So this is what we're talking about. In 2018, Nigeria spent 5.9 billion repaying loans. Forecast spend for 8.4 billion. I mean, here we have 2.2 billion education, 1.4 billion on healthcare. Sad, really sad. And so that's just as a sad instrument. I mean, everyone talks about how, and this is, again, I'm really stuck on this climate change thing, but I mean, cut me a break, right? I think, so everybody's now blaming climate change on everything. Climate change is the blame for everything. Okay, fine. But here's a situation where you have a doctor who basically died 2 weeks before she was going to be, honest goodness, full range MD, and she dies because of infrastructure issues. So I think that was a sad, sad situation here. Let's go to and just real quick. So I want to just hit that. Let's go to Gabon, and BBC does a great job again. About coups, different aspects. Here are military coups in Africa over the decades. A lot in 60 to 69. Then, kind of fell off a little bit. Again, here we have, and these are successful or failed. So, I mean, here's 26 in Africa, 15 of them failed. But there were 26 successful. If you add them together, that's 41. Right there, just 60 to 69. So in that decade, they have 41 coups. They're dropping off considerably, but there's still a lot to be done there. So this is, a sad part of that whole thing. And, countries in Africa with the highest number of coups since 1952. And I think this is from the same, I think this is the same area. We're going to talk about the highest number of coups and all that. So you have Mali, Burkina-Faso. Now think about this, right? Which ones are Russians coming into? Russia wants to get into Niger. They want to get into Chad. They'd love to get into Sudan, Burkina-Faso, Mali, all these areas. This is the Sahel in this area. It's a problem. It's a real issue. Sahara Desert, all this area. So that's a real issue. And look at Burkina Faso; it's had 10. So I mean, this is a lot of disturbances when we talk about this area. So it's in Sudan, and I'm sure this is South Sudan in here, but I'm sure at one point in time this was all Sudan, and that's the issue with having that. So let's stick with Africa here, and let's stick with Ethiopia. Let's go to Ethiopia at this point. So Ethiopia, and what I like to do is I like to throw in some geography here at this point, because I think it's kind of important. So what we're going to do is just throw you into, if you remember, there were some issues having to do with Eritrea and Ethiopia. And I think in order for you to talk about this and to understand it, we need to go to the place we're talking about. So here is Ethiopia in this area. And here is Eritrea in this area, right in here. So right now there's problems in Ethiopia up in this area because Eritrea wants to, there are some people that want to have this area Eritrean, and Ethiopia is trying to fight them off on that. So what happened in Israel? That, everyone sits back and figures that this is Eritrea, we don't have to worry about that. In Israel, there's some deaths caused as a result of a protest on Eritrean rebels, that there were two parties that were protesting, and evidently there was some police involvement, and people got shot and they got killed. So I mean, all that. Here's Eritrea. Here's Israel. So I mean, look at the distance between Eritrea and Israel. But there are people that are moving through, migrants, whatever you call it, moving up into this area. So you have those situations happening, and that presents an issue with that area. So let's just see the distance here real quick. So this is miles here. So let's just see the distance, miles between here and here. We're talking 1,200 miles. So it's 1,200 miles that we're talking about with this area. But again, and you're not going to hear this. You're not going to hear this from U.S. media that much. I mean, they may passing story type thing, whatever else, but BBC and Al Jazeera, DW, France 24, they have very, 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 very good international corresponding. And they do journalism. Honest to God, no kidding, journalism in this area. And which, I don't rate. I'm sorry, but I just don't rate the U.S. media as being that high on journalism. They're that high on hyperbole. They're that high on chaos making. They're a self-licking ice cream cone. I've said it in the past. They make the chaos and then they report on that chaos constantly. Make chaos, report on it. Make chaos, report on it. Make chaos, report on it. That's what they do. Now everyone's going to sit there and say, well, "What about the hurricanes? What about tornadoes? They're natural occurrences." Yeah, they do not make the hurricanes. They do not make the tornadoes. But by God, the minute a tornado hits an area, they are right there in the middle of that thing reporting it. Look at these poor people. Look what's happening to these poor people. Oh my gosh, the government is on this, dudes. You can report on it, but their thing is, blood and disaster. It's just it sells, so they're going to report on that. Shame. It's a shame, but that's what they do, and they got to make money like everyone else, I guess. So that's the way that goes. So that's it with that. But I wanted to show you some of the areas, and this is Coups from 1950, all the way to present. Now you see, blue means more coups, right? So Sudan has had 23 coups, right? Ethiopia 7, Central African Republic 8, Niger 13. All this, Mali 13. I mean, Mauritania 12. So, but then you go over here, right? So Iraq 16 coups. Syria 20 coups. Same, Al-Assad, doesn't realize that. Afghanistan 7. Right here, Turkey 9 coups in Turkey. So then you go to the East Asia. Boom, Myanmar 9, right? It used to be Burma. Vietnam 11. Interestingly enough, go right here. Russia 1 coup. 1, right? Big one, but 1 coup. Ukraine 2 coups. 2 coups in Ukraine. Spain's had a couple. Portugal's had a couple. I mean, look who hasn't had any. North America, right? North America, no coups. Now, a lot of people sit there and say, I wonder why there's never been any coup in America. Well, the military, when you take an oath, and I took an oath when I was part of the military, it says, I swear or affirm that I, blah, 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 will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, we don't take a pledge, or not pledge. We don't say that we're going to support a person. We say we're going to support a document, not just a document, but the document. And I think that makes us a little bit different from many other countries, is that they talk about the different aspects, but really our Constitution has been around so long that we're really, really lucky from that standpoint, even though I realize everyone talks about it as this living document, but really it is that which we built upon. And that is really important to support and defend that. And I think that's why we haven't had any coups. Mexico, I can't say that. Here we have Guatemala. We've had a few. Honduras, we've had a few. Yeah, we have. And then look at South America. Now, interestingly enough, Chile, it's funny. I mean, Argentina has had 27. But funny thing about it is this is Chile, and yet they have none. But Chile did, in fact, have a coup. I mean, they can call it a revolution, they can call it whatever they have, but not having anything in here um, is kind of funny. I mean, Uruguay 4, Brazil 10, so Paraguay, I mean, Bolivia is 34, uh, Venezuela 13. So he's had a lot in here. But again, I really wonder about this area right in here. And if I go to the actual the data and I take a look at 1973, I should have at least one for Chile. Well, they have more than one for Chile, but for whatever reason, and I don't know why, it didn't show up in the map. So the data is correct. The map is wrong for whatever reason. So, anyways, that's good. I'm glad that went in there. So that's what's happening. You have to. What am I doing right here? I'm checking the data, right? I check the data. It's on my data show. So, anyways, good. So based on that, you have to kind of wonder, what's the rest of this area. Now, it may not have translated correctly or whatever else to the map, which it's sorry about that. So let's see. So I have this. I wanted to go to here. This is arrested dictatorship. This is where I got the data from. Very good data. Jonathan Powell and Clayton Tyne. I hope I'm doing that correctly. I'm sorry if I didn't. So this is what they have here. Accessing the data, which I did. Stata. I don't have status, so it's like whatever. List accused by country. Original candidate list. All this. So this is what they have, and it's really a great chart. It shows it by year. Coup attempts 89, 90, and then it shows how these coup attempts happen in these areas. So I really appreciate them putting that out for us, and that's a good solid bit of data. So I do appreciate that. So let's turn just briefly to the Ukraine war, right? So BAE is a UK-based contracting organization. We in the United States do business with BAE as government. Ukraine has decided that they're going to bring BAE in to help them do things. I'm very concerned about this. Really, really concerned about this. I used to work for a government contractor briefly. Government contractors are out for one thing and one thing only. One thing and one thing only. And if government contractor says that they're out for anything else, trust me, they are trying to get on your good side. Government contractors are out for one thing: revenue. So I'd like to know where they're getting the revenue from. I mean, they're going to Ukraine and saying, okay, we're going to provide you with this and this and this and this and that. Where are they getting the money from? Are they getting the money from us giving them money? The U.S. is giving the Ukrainians money so they can give to a contractor. I mean, we spend an immense amount of money, and I'll get that for you. Anybody that wants that, you can contact me at the email. I'll be more than happy to get you that data. We spend a ton of money on government contractors. Ton. The United States Postal Service right now is spending a lot of money on their contractors. Contractors do a lot of the work, and when I say a lot of the work, I'd say over 50% of the work for the federal government in one way or another, whether it be everything from data to administration to weapons making to whatever you want to say. And the government, and I've been part of this government, says that they are actually saving money by hiring contractors. Saving money by hiring contractors. So they don't have to pay the overhead for the federal government workers, right? Yeah. So it's interesting how when the government contractors, when they start to pare down their people, all of a sudden the U.S. government hires them as federal government employees, and they give them a very good rate 2 because they have to basically try to equalize that salary. So BAE is getting in there, and they're getting into Russia-Ukraine war. Now, interestingly enough, what's going to happen is they are going to homestead. They're going to lay foundations for which to build houses so they can stay in Ukraine, and they're going to provide weapon support or whatever support they want to Ukraine for the foreseeable future. And they're going to make a lot of money on that because we're giving the Ukrainians money, and the Ukrainians are then going to pass that on to BAE. So basically, we're paying BAE contractors to provide for Ukraine. Great, right? Yeah, that's super. That's going to work. So I just wanted to hit that real quick because this is something that we should be really concerned about. What, accountability of money that's going to Ukraine. And also, hey, guess what, Ukraine? Guess what you're going to have in your backyard? BAE. For the rest of your life, you're going to have BAE until you finally drive them out and say, see you later. But until that point in time, BAE is going to, they're going to hire, Ukrainians or whatever they're going to do to try to make it look like they're economically getting into that situation. But government contractors are really, they are weaving themselves in between everything here. And they're enjoying the revenue because that's their number one goal. Revenue. Gotta get the money. It's very, very important to them. So just thought I'd throw that out there. And if government contractors listen to this and you're getting all perturbed about this whole thing, just wait. Just wait until they want to pare down. Where are you going to go? You're going to go to another government contractor, or are you going to go to the federal government? Yeah, that. So I wanted to make sure that everyone, BBC, like I said, is very good. They talked about Gabon, and they talked about this area, what we're having. Sudan. So we're going to go all the way back to 2021, Sudan coup, right? And exactly what, the background behind the tension, all the different things that go on there. This is really, really important. I really like the way BBC does this. They give you the ability to do whatever you need to do to try to figure out what happened within that Sudan area. So just to let you know one more time, where is Sudan? Sudan is right here. So this is Sudan. And what are they? They have a port. They have a port area. What's it do? The Red Sea. It's right along the Red Sea. Go along the Red Sea, up the Suez Canal, and boom, you're in the Med. So, I mean, there's a lot of strategic look to these countries and why it's so important to be able to understand exactly where they are. So it's, and they're all interconnected by this area. So, I wanted something else here. So one more story, and then I'll let you go. Germany, right? Here's Germany. What car? When you think about Germany, what car do you think about? Some people might say, "Oh, I like the Audi. I like whatever." BMW, right? BMW, very, very big. Germany, right? They just came out. It was just announced that they're going to do an electric car, a version of the Mini Cooper, but electric car. Where is that being manufactured? Well, let's take a look. Let's see. It's being manufactured in, let's see, where would that be? Let me get that country right here, that would be in, China. That's right. Being manufactured in China, folks. It's going to be a totally digital car. Software, firmware, all these things. It's being done in China. China, the hacker capital of the world, along with Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine also has a ton of hackers there. So basically, you have China. So isn't that great? So China is now going to manufacture cars, electric cars, for Germany. Very important. And they're going to use software and firmware. They're going to have access to that software and firmware. I don't want to drive an electric car that has Chinese influence in either software or hardware. I mean, what are we doing? I don't understand. On one edge, The Western people have said, European Union, the European Union has stated China is a threat. So if they're a threat, sure, have them make cars for us. That works. That works really well. Sure, people are going to be lined up for it. Great. That's just great. Thanks. We appreciate that. So I mean that's what we have. That's pretty much what we have for the worldview today. I mean, it was a bunch of gloom and doom, but Africa is hurting here, folks. The Sahel here is really turning Russian. It's turning Russian. And it's interesting that everyone sits back and goes, that, Russia and China are, I can't believe that they're that close. Trust me, they're that close. I mean, last two communist nations, major nations in the world, and everyone sits back and goes, well, but Russia's not communist. Yeah. I mean, they're authoritarian. They're basically have a dictator in charge. I mean, yeah. I mean, they're let's call them authoritarian then. So they're two authoritarian governments. So that's what's happening there. Also, last thing, domestically, let's go to the United States real quick. And I just want to finish up with this. Nikki Haley, one of the candidates for president, has stated that there ought to be some type of test, cognitive test, whatever you want to call it. So people in the Senate, after Mitch McConnell's problems and Dianne Feinstein's, a couple of the others, to basically drive them out of the Senate. And it's not drive them out, but say, hey, look, you're just too old. You need to retire. Bye-bye. Let the young people come back in and do whatever you need to do. Interestingly enough, if you take a look, and this is actually kind of cool. In fact, let me see if I can show it to you. So I'm gonna look up Senate, right? Definition, but no, origination of the word Senate. So I'm just going to do that here, Senate. So origination of the word Senate, etymology, right? So this is French and whatever else. Council of Elders. That's what it means in ancient Rome. Council of Elders. I mean, this is the legal administrative body of ancient Rome, Old French Senat, whatever, Latin's Senatus, highest council. Literally, Council of Elders. Old man. Old. I mean, people do not realize etymology and how important that is to be able to bring that up. But I just thought I'd throw that out there because I think it's kind of important to be able to understand that Senatus, is, when you talk about seniors, right? S-E-N, senis, senis, it's old, right? When we talk about seniors, we talk about old, right? So that's basically what's happening there. So I just thought I'd throw that out there and let you know. But I don't even go with the French thing, but Latin would be more the area. So I just I thought I'd throw that out that old is what the Senate is about, folks. Old is what Senate's about. Hence the 6-year term, right? You have 6-year terms, not 2-year terms like you have in the House of Representatives. Interesting. So I just thought I'd throw that out at you and tell you thanks again very much for watching Worldview. And I hope that this is informative to you. I hope you enjoy it. I enjoy presenting it. I enjoy researching it and trying to make sure. And, I apologize for getting on a soapbox sometimes, but sometimes this stuff just hits you in the head and it's like, geez, oh man, why aren't we, paying more attention to this? So hopefully this will get you to that point where you pay more attention to things like this. And until next time, this is Chris Greco thanking you again for watching The Worldview.